Bacharach and Close to You, and that was your entrance music tonight. Noel Gallagher, welcome to the show. You all right?
Very much, yeah. What an entrance.
I know. How beautiful. And welcome to the show, and it's lovely to have you here, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. We were going backwards and forth when Burt Bacharach died, just about the music that man gave us.
Yeah.
And I know you're a really big fan. And I was saying that I went to see Oasis, and at the end of the show, as everyone kind of trailed out, you played This Guy's in Love with You, and it just completely changed my perception of the band.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite songs of all time. I actually thought I thought it was so psychedelic when I first heard it. I thought it was called The Sky's in Love with You, which I always thought was an amazing concept.
Yeah.
And only found out afterwards that This Guy's in Love with You. But no, he was a genius, I think. You know, I mean, I've been listening to him. We all do this when somebody of significant passes away. You kind of like, and put together a playlist, and kind of shaving in the morning, kind of stopping and looking at the speakers going, I mean, such a complex composer, songwriter, amazing breakup songs, amazing love songs. And I mean, obviously I was privileged enough to sing with him once.
Yeah, tell us about that, how that was, what happened, because some people won't be aware.
So the story starts with a night out with John Lydon and Rambo, right?
I was going to ask you about John Lydon later on.
Which is another story altogether. But as that night finished, we were up all night in a hotel in Santa Monica, and we'd stayed up, pushed on through till the bar opened, and we kind of sat out on this terrace thing having a drink. And I just happened to glance into the reception area, and I was like, sure, that's Burt Bacharach. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? It's like, it's Burt Bacharach. And as I walked up to where he was at the desk, I knew it was him because he had a bomber jacket on with an ambigram that said BB on the back. Right? And I thought, because I didn't know this at the time, but he bred racehorses, and he'd just come back from Dubai, and his horse had won the Dubai Kings, whatever it was.
Wow.
Anyway, so I kind of went, like I used to do in the 90s, I just walked up and tapped him on the shoulder and kind of went, all right, and I told him I was in Oasis, and he went, oh, no, so anyway, he came out and sat with us, and of course we put his picture on the cover of Definitely Maybe, and we were chatting away about music, and he'd heard the record, and he said, oh, I'm actually coming to London in a few months. It's going to be my first show since the 60s, and we were like, oh, where are you playing? And he was like, oh, the Royal Festival Hall, and he was getting guest singers up to sing, and I say, no, who's going to sing This Guy's in Love with You? And he kind of did the singing. He went, hey, man, why don't you come and sing it? And I was like, absolutely no problem, mate. No problem. Give us your number. Unbeknownst to me, I gave him my phone number, right? And at the time, I wasn't living anywhere, right? So the number I gave him was two of my best mates who still work for me, Mark Coyle and Phil Smith, right? I gave him their phone number because they'll know how to get hold of me. Now, if you can picture the scene, they're sat at home, minding their own business. Don't any of this is going on. We're across the other side of the world. And the phone goes, and they let it go to answer machine, as they do, like Cheech and Chong. And it's like, they're sitting there, and it's like, hey, it's a message for Noel from Burt Bacharach. And they both kind of jumped out of the chair and got hold of me and said, how's Burt Bacharach calling this house? And I was like, oh, no, I gave him your number, blah, blah. Anyway, so he'd left some contact details, and they were going, he's doing a gig in London. I said, no, I know, and I told him the story. And anyway, a few months passed. I go into my office, and there's an American girl working for us at the time called Christine Mary Billa. Hello, Christine, if you're listening. And she just put the phone, and she said, do you know Burt Bacharach? And like a few months had passed since this we met him, and I was going, yeah. And they said, oh, he's in town. He wants to know. He's staying at the Athenaeum. Do you want to go and see him? And it's only then that it dawned on me what I'd agreed to do. And I was like, I can't go and see him. But what are you talking about? And they said, are you doing a gig with him? And I was like, no way am I singing with Burt Bacharach.
Oh
anyway,
God.
Everyone was saying, you've got to go and see him. So I go down to the Athenaeum, and I go to reception. And I said, oh, it's Mr. Gallagher from Mr. Bacharach. And the guy calls up to his room, and he said, there's no answer. I think he's gone out. And I was like, brilliant, thank God for that. So I was like, great, I've got out. I said, tell him that Noel Gallagher came to see him, you know, and he wasn't in. And he said, all right, and he wrote it down, that was it. And as I turned around, I bumped straight into him.
Oh!
And he was like, hey, Mel, glad you could make it. And that. So we go up to his room.
But your heart
and
sank.
honestly, it's one of my favourite moments of my life. There's just me and him in this hotel room. And he says, do you want a drink? And I was like, I'll have 20 beers, you know. And he kind of sat down some beer, and they came. We were just chatting away, and then it's almost like the scene from Pulp Fiction when Vincent Vega goes into the bathroom, and he's like, you know, just going to go out there, everything's going to be cool, right? We're going to try and wriggle out of this gig. Going to be all right. Going to make him laugh, and then we'll just leave. As I come out, he's playing "This Guy's in Love with You" on this huge piano, and he said, I'll never forget it. And he just said, "Hey man, why don't you come over and join me?" Right? And there's like some off, I don't know, some mad TV show from the '60s. So I go over, and I've got a beer in one, and I've got a cig in the other.
No one else in the room?
No, just me and him.
Just you and him,
and
right?
he's playing, and he's got the music up there,
Oh my
and
God.
I start singing, and then he's like, "Hey man, that sounds great. I think this is going to be great." And I like left and went back, and was like been roped into the gig, and yeah, I remember going down to the sound check, and he was doing "Anyone Who Ever Had a Heart," and I can't remember who was singing it, but he kept stopping it and making her do it again and again, and I was like, oh man, this is brutal. And he's saying to the woman, "Look, Mr. Gallagher's here, so we need to get it right this time." And I'm kind of like, oh. And it's at this point I realised, so I brought Phil Smith and Mark Coyle with me, right, who got me into Burt Bacharach.
Cheech and Chong.
And it's at this point that I noticed that Mark Coyle's got a plastic bag, right, just like a co-op plastic bag, and he's rummaging through it, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I've got a tape recorder in the bag." I'm like, "What for?" And he's like, "Because I'm going to bootleg the gig." And I was like, What? It's like, he's there, and he's like, "Don't worry about it, man, who's going to know?" And he's rummaging around with this thing. So I go up on stage, and I'm kind of saying hello to his band, and I recognise his drummer. His drummer, right, this is even more mind-blowing, was Elvis's drummer, Ron Tutt, right,
no
who
way.
drummed with him in the Vegas years. And I was blown away by this. And I was like, "Is your name Ronnie?" "Yes, sir." And I was like, "You're Ron Tutt?" And he was like, "I am." And I was like, "You drum with Elvis?" And he's like, "I did." And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And
Were you nervous at this point about
well,
doing it? Do you
well,
get nervous?
There was all a bit of Mancunian bravado and
Of course.
beers and all that. It was only when they introduced me from the side of the stage, and he gave me this introduction and Oasis and this, that, and the other. "Why do you say hello to Mr. Noel Gallagher?" And on I walked, and then it dawned on me that this is the first time I was ever going to do anything without a guitar, and I didn't know what to do. And I was stood rather awkwardly, and luckily there was a stool there, and it kind of ended up a bit like Val Doonican, I've got to say, but I did all right. I did all right, and we had a great party in his dressing room. There's like Kate Moss was there, and all the people who hung out with, were all smoking and drinking, and he's like, you know, he's a legend from the '60s, and he's not smoking or drinking, and
One of the greatest moments of your life.
absolutely, you know, like a lad from a council estate doesn't normally get to do those kind of things, but he was great, and we kind of kept in touch, and I did a couple of things with him just before he died, actually. I'm not sure whether they'll see the light of day,
Really?
but yeah, I got invited down to some place in North London where they were re-recording all his great, and he wanted me to sing "This Guy's in Love with You" with some orchestra, and he was supposed to turn up, but he missed his flight, was getting in late or something, and I haven't heard the finished version of that,
Okay.
but he was yeah, well, I mean, what a dude, you know, and what a songbook, like really, really amazing.
Let's play